Welcome back. As we build up to the 2021 municipal elections, we are exploring the issue of citizen participation in local government issues. Are citizens given adequate opportunities to influence or even contribute to local government development plans? Let's now speak to Plan Act, a non-profit organization based in Braamfontein in Johannesburg. They support civic engagement on local government issues. Their work is mostly on understanding municipal processes which enable citizens to engage better. Makwela is the Senior Program Coordinator. He joins us now live. Mike, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the agenda.
Good morning, SMP, and thank you for inviting Plan Act to this esteemed program of yours this morning. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure because it's a very, very important, conversation that we will be having, and not just about the fact that we're leading or we're getting closer to the local government elections, but just the rights of citizen participation in the local government decision-making structures. And what has your research and work on the ground pointed to? Is there perhaps a conducive environment for citizens to hold their respective local governments accountable?
Well, thanks. The first thing is that we need to remind ourselves that this is the 6th municipal local elections that are going to be held. So we've come a long way indeed, 6 municipal elections. But secondly, I define this as a contract between the citizens or the voters and the politicians. So this contract says, I am willing to trade my power, that is my vote, against the wishes and the expectations that you are making to me as a politician. In other words, somebody comes and knocks on my door and says, please vote for me because I will deliver these services. I'll make sure that there's a park in your area. I'll make sure that the traffic lights work. I will make sure that the grass is cut. I'll make sure that there's water, there's sanitation, the proper roads, etc. So that contract, that arrangement, that agreement between the citizens and the politicians, a very important one. And so you cannot divorce the issue of accountability and monitoring this contract that the two have entered into. So it's very important that those who make promises must be willing to be held accountable because they have raised expectations. And those that are trading their vote, that is the voters, the citizens, must be able to hold those that have made promises accountable. So there is a space for citizens to hold politicians accountable. And that's a very important point in terms of this contract that will be entering on the 1st of November.
Well, I'm actually glad you used the analogy of, contract, because that is a great analogy, because it is indeed a social contract between the public office bearers and as well as the citizenry. And do you get a sense then that the citizens themselves do understand the role and the important role that they have in terms of, getting the public office bearers to account?
It's very clear. The service delivery protest that normally happens closer to elections are an indication that people realize that they've got the power of the vote and they can negotiate. That's the time to negotiate and use different means. It could be service delivery protest, it could be petitions, it could be litigation. So it is during these times when we approach elections that you see a flare-up of communities engaging with their public representatives. So there is a space for citizens to engage the public representatives. Well, to a certain extent, not many people know that they've got rights, that they can hold the public representative accountable. And as a country, still have a long way to go to make sure that we bring back the issue of citizens' engagement and citizens build the capacity of citizens to be able to understand their constitutional rights, but also their obligations. So it's important that that is being done.
And if the environment is not conducive, is this likely, to see more protests against municipal actions for various reasons?
That normally happens during this period.
Yeah.
It's a way of bargaining. Communities bargain and use that as the power that they have to say, we will not vote for you if you do not provide electricity or water or refuse removal, etc. And you see a flare up of this service delivery protest towards the elections. However, people still know that the vote is a powerful tool because it can either take you to the municipal council or not. So the vote is a very powerful tool that the citizens have as part of their negotiation. Remember, a vote is but one form of participation. There are many other forms of participation. It could be in the IDP process, it could be in the budget process, but this is one important tool that communities have in engaging their public representatives. So it is always important to use this tool that you have, the power that you have in your cross. So that's very critical and important.
Talk to us about your work on the ground, Mr. Makwela, and the kind of challenges people are going through with regards to service delivery issues.
Well, we work primarily in informal settlements and depressed communities. Well, it's very disheartening that you still see in 2021 that there are communities that share communal taps, that share communal toilets, where waste is not removed, where the roads are not proper, the street lights don't work. If you are lucky to have a street light, there are no parks in informal settlements, there are no libraries in informal settlements. And so the challenge is still massive that the country needs to respond to. So I am hoping that the next public administration will make sure that it attends to those issues very, very urgently, because the patience of voters and people who live in depressed communities, such as informal settlement, cannot be stretched any longer. Because, you know, it's important, as I said, this is a contract. I give you my vote, you deliver on the services. So if you do not, if you break the contract, it means you are not playing the game fair. And so I reserve the right to hold you accountable. I reserve the right to be unhappy with you. I reserve the right to be disgruntled in any form and shape. So yes, there are still challenges, but as a country, I think all of us combined, civil society, government, business, all the stakeholders, we all have a role to play in making sure that the issue of service delivery are attended to and attended to immediately.
And at this stage of the game, Mike, what is needed from political party leaders? An inspirational speech, a frank, honest speech, perhaps outlining the pros and the cons, or even both? I mean, what would inspire confidence? So if these leaders come to my door, knocking on my door and asking for my vote, what is it that I should engage them on? Should it be about these issues that I've just articulated? I mean, what is it that I should be asking questions on, apart just from accepting T-shirts and food parcels?
Well, there are several issues that I need to ask. One is that, are you going to when you canvass, when you come to my door, are you going to strengthen social cohesion? Because that's very important for me. Are you going to make sure that I understand the budget of the municipality and I'm able to engage with it? Are you going to make sure that the space of public participation is going to be opened enough so that I can also begin to engage with government, local government processes? Are you going to make sure that the promises that you are making are going to be fulfilled? But are you also going to tell me the limitations that you have? Because it can't just be all rosy. So tell me what you can do and what is it that you cannot do, so that we meet each other halfway. The other important thing is that it's important that communities also are mobilized and are able to engage with these processes. What is it that communities can also bring on the table? You see, we miss the point of community assets. All communities have got assets. The fact that we're in a ward, we're a people, that alone, we're an asset. But how much more asset do we have that we can meet each other halfway? That's a very discussion that we never have in this space. What is it that communities can bring on the plate? So it's important that when this person knocks at my door, I ask those questions. Are you not going to tick the box? to say, yes, you attended integrated development planning, when in fact you know that it's not a genuine process? Are you going to make sure that I understand how local government works? Because that's a very important thing, so that I don't get frustrated as a voter and knock at the wrong doors. I want to know which door I should look at. The other critical thing, I find it funny sometimes that 5 years will lapse and people would not know who their ward councillor is. Now, there is this nice term that you always see in government, taking parliament to people. I want to challenge the next councillors to say, I am going to make sure that every week I am going to hold meetings in these 2 streets or in this block, so that I take councillor to the people, or what we call taking parliament to the people, so that everybody in my ward, as a councillor, everybody knows who I am. The second thing that I think councillors need to do, I've just said there are assets in communities. There are teachers, there are lawyers, there are chartered accountants, there are planners, a range of skills that are there. If I were to be a councillor, I will make sure that I bring those people in my team to help me to understand some of this technology and technical things that I don't have a good grasp on. Lastly, I would make sure that I open my ward committee meeting. If I have a ward committee meeting, I will invite people to come and sit and listen what we discuss in a ward committee. Just like everybody has a right to go and sit in the council chamber and listen at the debates that are taking in the council, except when those meetings are close by. So I'm expecting innovations from the councillors, from the next set of councillors, to make sure that they bring the voters into the picture. We need to make sure that the next councillors bring new energy into this space.
You're making all the right points there, Mike. I mean, citizen participation in local government elections obviously has been posited as an effective tool to reduce the level of citizen distrust and to educate citizens about governmental issues. But not much is being said about what constitutes effective participation. And I suppose we need to interrogate the basic tenets of effective citizen participation.
Well, there are certain non-negotiables. There are certain benchmarks. There are certain non-negotiables that we need to agree on. One is that is this space of participation open for anyone to engage on? In other words, those that are educated, those that are not educated, the women, the youth, the disabled, the downtrodden. Is that space open for all of us? So that's the first thing. The second thing, am I being listened to? What is the point of engaging when I'm not being listened to? So you can't talk about meaningful public participation without talking about being listened to. I need to be listened to. Thirdly, I need to know that what I am engaging on is going to be taken into consideration. What is the point of engaging in this meaningful public participation when my points are not going to be even considered? There may be yes or no. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a yes every time. But I need to have an assurance that I will be listened to. The things that I'm raising are going to be taken into consideration. So those are very non-negotiables for me when we talk about effective and meaningful public participation. Yes, that space is open for me.
Indeed. Thank you so much for joining us then, Mr. Mike Makwela. And I suppose then that the underlying assumption by political thought leaders and civic organization personnel like yourself, I mean, we need to understand that public participation increases public trust in authorities and improving citizenry and political efficacy. And I suppose then the big question is, how do we measure effective public participation in terms of delivering the basic services? Thank you so much for your time. That was Mike Makwela, the Senior Program Coordinator at Plan Act.